The stars looked different today. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of Research Station Europa 7, watching Jupiter's massive form slowly rotate in the distance. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he kept holding the mug anyway. It gave his hands something to do while his mind wandered. "Captain, you need to see this," came a voice from behind him. Dr. Lisa Carter rushed into the room, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. Her face showed excitement mixed with concern. Jake turned around, setting down his mug. "What is it, Doc?" "We have company. Something big just appeared on our long-range sensors." Lisa handed him the tablet. The screen showed a blip that definitely wasn't supposed to be there. Jake studied the readings. The object was huge, easily 3 times the size of their research station. It had appeared suddenly without any of the usual signs that came with ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. No energy spike, no gravitational disturbance, nothing. "Where did it come from?" Jake asked. "That's the problem. It just appeared. 1 second there was nothing, the next second it was there. And Captain, it's not like any ship design in our databases." Commander Ryan Clark walked into the room, drawn by their voices. Ryan handled security for the station, and he looked worried. "I heard we have visitors. Are they responding to our signals?" Lisa shook her head. "We've tried everything. Standard greeting protocols, mathematical sequences, even music, nothing." Jake looked at the sensor data again. The ship wasn't moving toward them or away from them. It just sat there in space like it was waiting for something. How long before they reach us if they decide to move? At standard speeds, about 6 hours. But Captain, based on how they appeared, I don't think they need that long if they want to get here. The 3 humans stood in silence for a moment, each thinking about what this meant. First contact with an alien species was something they had trained for, but it always seemed like something that would happen to someone else. "Somewhere else, I'll alert Earth Command," Ryan said, already reaching for his communicator. "Wait." Jake held up a hand. "Let's see what they want first. If they meant us harm, they probably would have done something by now." As if responding to his words, the communications console began beeping. Lisa ran to it, her fingers dancing over the controls. After a few moments, she looked up with wide eyes. "They're sending us something. It's not in any language I recognize, but the computer is working on it." The main screen flickered, and then words appeared in English. The translation was rough but understandable. "Greetings, space travelers. We are the Zephyrian Exploration Fleet. We come seeking knowledge and peaceful contact. May we approach your station?" Jake felt his heart racing. This was really happening. They were making first contact with an alien species. He took a deep breath and walked to the communication station. "Send this back," he told Lisa. "Welcome, Zephyrian friends. I am Captain Jake Morrison of Earth Research Station Europa 7. You are welcome to approach. We also seek peaceful contact." The response came quickly. "We thank you, Captain Morrison. Our ship Silent Harmony will arrive shortly. Our commander Velthara requests permission to send a small diplomatic party to your station." "Permission granted," Jake replied. He turned to Ryan and Lisa. "This is it. Get everyone ready. And contact Dr. White. We're going to need our psychologist for this." 2 hours later, Jake stood in the main docking bay with his senior staff. Dr. Kevin White had joined them, along with engineer Danny Torres and communications officer Beth Adams. They all wore their best uniforms and tried to look calm, but Jake could see the excitement and nervousness in their eyes. The Zephyrian shuttle was beautiful. It looked like it was made of crystalline light, moving silently through space with no visible engines. It docked with their station so smoothly that they barely felt the connection. The airlock opened and the aliens stepped through. They were tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer like water. Their faces were angular but kind, with large eyes that changed color as they moved. They wore robes that looked like they were made from starlight itself. The leader stepped forward and spoke, though Jake noticed her mouth didn't move much. The words seemed to come from a small device on her chest. "I am Commander Velthara of the Silent Harmony. Thank you for welcoming us to your station." Jake stepped forward and extended his hand. The commander looked at it curiously for a moment, then reached out and grasped it gently. Her skin felt warm and slightly electric. "Welcome to Europa 7, Commander. I'm Captain Jake Morrison. These are my senior officers." Commander Velthara introduced her own team. There was Science Officer Mordeth, who seemed very interested in the humans' equipment. Navigation Specialist Colvin kept looking around the room like she was memorizing everything. And then there was High Priest Kethmaran, The priest was different from the others. He moved more slowly, and his eyes seemed to look right through people. When Jake shook his hand, he felt a strange tingling sensation, like a mild electric shock. High Priest Kethmaran serves as our spiritual guide and diplomat, Commander Velthera explained. He has a special gift that helps us understand new species we encounter. What kind of gift? Dr. Carter asked. I can touch minds, the priest said, his voice soft and musical. It allows us to truly understand each other, beyond the barriers of language and culture. Jake felt a small chill. Touch minds? You mean telepathy? Yes, though we prefer to call it the ritual of understanding. It has helped us make peaceful contact with dozens of species across the galaxy. Would you be willing to participate? It would help us understand your people better and help you understand us. Jake looked at his team. Dr. White nodded slightly. It seemed safe enough and it could lead to better relations with this new species. I'll do it, Jake said. What does it involve? High Priest Kethmaran smiled, an expression that somehow looked both kind and sad. Simply relax and let me make contact with your mind. You will feel a gentle presence, nothing more. The process has never caused harm to any species. Jake nodded, though he felt nervous. This was definitely not covered in the first contact manual. When would you like to do this? He asked. If you are ready, we could begin now. The sooner we understand each other, the sooner we can begin true friendship between our peoples. Jake looked around the room one more time. His crew looked back at him with trust and encouragement. This was why they were out here, to make these connections and expand humanity's place in the universe. All right, Jake said. Let's do it. He had no idea what he was about to unleash. Dr. Lisa Carter set up the medical bay for the telepathic ritual. She placed sensors on both Captain Morrison and High Priest Kethmaran, wanting to monitor their vital signs during the process. The other humans gathered around to watch while the Zephyrian crew stood at a respectful distance. Are you comfortable, Captain? Dr. Carter asked, checking the readings on her tablet. Jake nodded from the medical chair. He felt nervous but tried not to show it. The priest sat in a chair facing him, those strange color-changing eyes focused intently on Jake's face. The process is simple, High Priest Kethmaran explained, his voice calm and soothing. I will extend my consciousness toward yours. You may feel a gentle pressure in your mind, like someone lightly touching your thoughts. Do not resist it. Let me in and I will understand your people. Commander Velthera stepped closer. High Priest Kethmaran has performed this ritual hundreds of times. The Gorathians, the Sylvek, the crystalline ones, all have benefited from the understanding it brings. Your species will be no different. Dr. White leaned forward, his psychologist training making him curious. What exactly do you see when you connect with a mind? I see the patterns of thought, the priest replied. How memories are stored, how emotions flow, how decisions are made. Each species has its own unique pattern, like a fingerprint of consciousness. Once I understand the pattern, I can help bridge the gap between our peoples. Jake took a deep breath. I'm ready when you are. High Priest Kethmaran closed his eyes and extended his hands toward Jake's head. He didn't quite touch him, but held his fingers about an inch away from Jake's temples. The priest's skin began to glow with a soft blue light. At first, Jake felt nothing. Then slowly he became aware of something else in his mind. It felt like a gentle breeze blowing through his thoughts, cool and refreshing. It wasn't unpleasant at all. The priest's expression remained calm and focused. This was routine for him. He had done this so many times that he could perform the ritual in his sleep. He expected to find the usual patterns: organized thoughts, clear emotional pathways, logical memory structures. Instead, he found chaos. The first hint that something was wrong came when High Priest Kethmaran's eyes snapped open. His calm expression wavered, replaced by confusion. Interesting, he murmured, closing his eyes again. Your thought patterns are unusual. Jake felt the presence in his mind growing stronger. It was still gentle, but more insistent now, like someone searching through a cluttered room looking for something specific. Is everything okay? Dr. Carter asked, watching the readings on her tablet spike. Yes, the priest said, though his voice sounded strained. Just different than expected. Human consciousness is more complex than other species. But High Priest Kethmaran was beginning to understand that complex was not the right word. What he was experiencing in Jake's mind was unlike anything he had ever encountered. In every other species he had touched, thoughts came in orderly sequences. The Gorathians thought in straight lines. one idea leading logically to the next. The Sylvic had circular thought patterns, always returning to central concepts. The crystalline ones had geometric thoughts, perfectly structured and symmetrical. Humans, it seemed, thought in storms. Jake's mind contained dozens of simultaneous thought streams. While the priest was trying to understand one memory, 3 other thoughts would interrupt. Jake was simultaneously thinking about the ritual, wondering what his wife back on Earth was doing, remembering a song he had heard that morning, worrying about the station's food supplies, and planning modifications to their research equipment. The priest tried to follow one thought stream, but it kept branching off into others. Jake remembered his childhood dog, which reminded him of a movie about dogs, which made him think about the actor in that movie, which led to thoughts about acting, which somehow connected to his concerns about how well he was performing as captain during this first contact situation. "This is remarkable," High Priest Kethmaran said, sweat beginning to form on his crystalline skin. "Captain Morrison, do you realize you are thinking about 17 different things simultaneously?" Jake laughed, which created a whole new stream of thoughts about humor and its appropriateness in formal situations. "Is that a lot? It feels normal to me." Normal? The priest tried to grasp that concept. For humans, this chaos was normal. How did they function? How did they make decisions when their minds were constantly being pulled in different directions? As he delved deeper, High Priest Kethmaran discovered something even more disturbing. Humans could hold contradictory thoughts at the same time. Jake loved his job as captain, but also missed his old life as a simple engineer. He was excited about meeting aliens, but also terrified of what it might mean for humanity. He trusted his crew completely, but still worried constantly about their safety. These contradictions should have paralyzed a thinking being, but somehow Jake's mind handled them effortlessly. More than handled them, it used them. The contradictions created a kind of mental flexibility that allowed for rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving. The priest's carefully ordered mind began to strain under the effort of understanding this chaos. He tried to withdraw slightly to protect himself, but found that he couldn't. The human thought patterns were too engaging, too dynamic. They pulled him in deeper. "High Priest?" Commander Velthara called out, concern in her voice. "Your vital signs are elevating." I'm fine," the priest gasped, though he clearly wasn't. His skin had gone from its normal shimmer to a harsh, bright glow. Just trying to understand. But understanding was becoming impossible. The deeper he went into Jake's mind, the more chaotic it became. Humans didn't just think randomly. They thought in layers. Surface thoughts about the current situation mixed with deeper thoughts about life philosophy, childhood memories, future plans, and abstract concepts. And underneath it all was something that terrified the priest more than anything else: creativity. Human minds didn't just process information and make logical decisions. They created new ideas out of nothing, combining unrelated concepts in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did. Jake was currently inventing a new kind of spacecraft design by combining memories of watching birds fly with his engineering knowledge and a half-remembered dream about swimming through space. The design was actually brilliant, but it came from a thought process so chaotic that it hurt the priest's ordered mind to follow it. "High Priest Kethmaran," Dr. Carter said urgently, "your temperature is rising dangerously. We should stop this." "No," the priest said through gritted teeth. "I must understand. This is incredible. How do you think like this? How do you function with so much chaos in your minds?" Jake tried to focus his thoughts to make them clearer for the priest. But that only made things worse. When humans tried to organize their thinking, they didn't create order. They created new layers of chaos as they thought about their thinking, analyzed their analysis, and wondered about their wondering. High Priest Kethmaran felt his mental defenses beginning to crack. The human thought patterns were infectious. He could feel his own ordered thinking starting to fragment, taking on some of the chaotic qualities of human consciousness. For the first time in his long life, the priest experienced doubt. Not the careful, logical evaluation of alternatives that his people called consideration, but true doubt, the painful human ability to believe and disbelieve something at the same time. He tried to scream, but found that he had forgotten how to make sounds in an orderly fashion. Instead, what came out was a confused mixture of telepathic signals that sent shockwaves through every Zephyrian mind within range. The ritual was spinning out of control, and High Priest Kethmaran was trapped in the beautiful, terrible storm of human consciousness with no idea how to escape. The sound that came from High Priest Kethmaran was unlike anything the humans had ever heard. It wasn't quite a scream, wasn't quite music, and wasn't quite speech. It was all three at once, a telepathic wail that seemed to come from inside everyone's head rather than through their ears. Dr. Carter moved quickly, grabbing the priest by the shoulders and trying to pull him away from Captain Morrison. "We need to break the connection now." But High Priest Kethmaran wouldn't move. His hands remained frozen near Jake's head, trembling but locked in place. His eyes had rolled back, showing only white and strange lights flickered under his crystalline skin. Commander Velthara rushed forward, her calm diplomatic manner forgotten. "High Priest, you must withdraw. Break the connection." On the Zephyrian ship, alarms began sounding. The priest's telepathic distress was broadcasting directly into the minds of his crew members. Science Officer Mordeth collapsed at his station, clutching his head. Navigation Specialist Colvin stumbled against a wall. Her usually graceful movements turned clumsy and confused. "What's happening to them?" Engineer Danny Torres asked, watching in horror as the Zephyrian delegation began showing signs of mental distress. Dr. White stepped forward, his psychological training kicking in. "It's a feedback loop. The priest is connected to his crew telepathically, and whatever he's experiencing is being transmitted to them." Jake tried to help by clearing his mind, focusing on simple, peaceful thoughts. But this only made things worse. When humans tried to think simply, their minds didn't become simple. They became aware of trying to be simple, which created new layers of complexity. Dr. Carter grabbed her medical scanner and pointed it at both Jake and the priest. The readings were unlike anything she had seen before. Jake's brain activity was normal for a human, chaotic but stable. The priest's readings, however, showed a mind in complete disorder. "His neural patterns are fragmenting," she announced. "Whatever human consciousness is doing to him, his brain isn't designed to handle it." Commander Velthara tried to communicate with her priest telepathically, but found that touching his mind even slightly was like grabbing a live electrical wire. The chaos from Jake's consciousness had infected the priest's thoughts, turning his usually ordered mental voice into a screaming storm of contradictory ideas. "We must get him back to the ship," she said urgently. "Our healers might be able to help him." But when they tried to move High Priest Kethmaran, his grip on the connection only tightened. It was as if he was drowning in Jake's consciousness and couldn't let go of the only solid thing he could find, the human mind that was destroying him. Dr. White approached carefully. "Priest Kethmaran, can you hear me? You need to let go. You're hurting yourself." The priest's response came in broken fragments, half telepathic and half spoken. "Cannot. Too much. How do you live with this? So many thoughts. All at once. Impossible." Through their damaged telepathic link, Commander Velthara began to understand what was happening. Human consciousness wasn't just different from other species, it was fundamentally alien in a way that their minds couldn't process. "He's trying to understand human thought patterns," she explained to the gathered humans. "But your minds work in ways that are completely foreign to us. We think in straight lines, one thought at a time. You think in chaos," Dr. Carter finished. "Our brains evolved differently. We had to adapt to constant change and danger. Our minds learned to process multiple things simultaneously." Jake felt terrible. "I'm sorry. I didn't know this would happen. How can I help him?" But helping was the problem. Every time Jake tried to make his thoughts clearer or simpler, he was thinking about thinking, which created more complexity. Human consciousness was recursive. They could think about their thoughts, feel emotions about their emotions, and remember remembering things. High Priest Kethmaran began babbling in his native language, mixed with broken English and telepathic broadcasts that made the other Zephyrians clutch their heads in pain. "Impossible beings," he gasped. "You hold love and hate for the same person. Plan for tomorrow while living in the moment. Create beauty from suffering. Find humor in tragedy. How do you not go insane?" Dr. White realized something important. We do go insane sometimes, but we also have ways of dealing with it. Our chaos isn't a flaw, it's a feature. It lets us adapt and survive in ways that more ordered minds can't. The priest's condition was getting worse. His telepathic screams were now affecting humans too. Beth Adams complained of a headache and Danny Torres said he was hearing voices. Commander Velthara made a difficult decision. We must sedate him. It's the only way to break the connection safely. Dr. Carter prepared a mild sedative, but she wasn't sure how Zephyrian physiology would react to human drugs. This might help, but I can't guarantee it won't hurt him. Before they could administer the sedative, High Priest Kethmaran suddenly spoke clearly for the first time since the connection began. I understand now, he said, his voice filled with wonder and terror. You are not chaotic. You are quantum. Your minds exist in multiple states simultaneously until the moment you need to make a decision. You hold all possibilities at once. Jake felt the connection starting to weaken. Is that bad? Bad? The priest laughed, a sound that was half hysteria and half amazement. It's impossible. No mind should be able to function like that. You should all be insane. But instead you're brilliant, creative, adaptable. You solve problems by thinking in ways that shouldn't work but do. The connection finally broke. High Priest Kethmaran collapsed backward in his chair, his skin flickering between different colors as his mind tried to reorganize itself. Jake slumped forward, suddenly feeling exhausted, but the priest wasn't done. Even with the direct connection severed, he had been changed by his contact with human consciousness. The orderly patterns of his thoughts had been disrupted, infected with human-style thinking. Cannot make it stop, he whispered, holding his head in his hands. The thoughts. They multiply, contradict, create. How do you bear it? How do you live with minds that never stop changing? Dr. Carter checked both patients. Jake was tired but fine. The priest, however, was showing signs of severe mental trauma. His ordered Zephyrian consciousness was trying to process the chaos he had absorbed from the human mind. But it was like trying to contain a storm in a bottle. Commander Velthara looked at the humans with a mixture of fear and respect. What are you people? How did you become this way? Dr. White considered the question carefully. We evolved on a dangerous planet. Constant threats, changing environments, natural disasters. Our minds had to become flexible to survive. We learned to think fast, adapt quickly, and hold multiple possibilities in our heads at once. High Priest Kethmaran began to scream again, but this time the sound was different. It wasn't just pain. It was the sound of a mind trying to process concepts that were fundamentally beyond its design. The first contact mission had succeeded in ways none of them had expected. The Zephyrians had learned something profound about humanity, but the cost was becoming clear. The priest might never recover from his exposure to human consciousness, and deep in his damaged mind, strange new thoughts continued to multiply and contradict and create, like an infection of chaos that would never stop spreading. 3 days had passed since the ritual, and High Priest Kethmaran had not stopped screaming. The sound had changed from the initial telepathic wail to something worse, a constant stream of consciousness that mixed Zephyrian telepathy with human-style thinking patterns. Dr. Carter had set up a temporary medical facility in one of the station's cargo bays, trying to help both the priest and the Zephyrian crew members who were being affected by his condition. The telepathic field that normally connected all Zephyrians was now carrying the infection of human thought patterns throughout their ship. Status report, Captain Morrison said as he entered the medical bay. He looked tired. None of them had slept much since the incident began. The priest is stable physically, Dr. Carter reported, checking her readings. But mentally, he's stuck in some kind of loop. He keeps trying to process human thought patterns with a brain that wasn't designed for it. Commander Velthara stood beside the priest's bed, her usual calm shattered. Her skin flickered between colors more rapidly than normal, a sign of stress in her species. Our healers cannot help him. They tried to enter his mind to repair the damage, but they were immediately affected by the same chaos. Dr. White approached the group, carrying a tablet full of notes. I've been studying the telepathic broadcasts he's sending out. It's fascinating and terrifying at the same time. He's experiencing human consciousness from the inside, but his mind keeps trying to organize it according to Zephyrian logic. What does that mean? Jake asked. Think of it like trying to organize a hurricane into neat piles, Dr. White explained. Every time he tries to make sense of one human thought pattern, it branches off into 5 others. His mind gets caught in endless loops trying to understand contradictions that humans handle naturally. On the Zephyrian ship, the situation was getting worse. Engineer Danny Torres had been working with their technical team to monitor the telepathic field. And the readings were concerning. "The infection is spreading," Danny reported over the communicator. "More Zephyrian crew members are showing symptoms. Some of them are starting to think in human patterns, and it's causing them severe distress." But there was something else Danny had noticed, something he wasn't sure how to report. Some of the affected Zephyrians were showing remarkable improvements in certain areas. Science Officer Mordeth, who had been one of the first affected, had suddenly solved 3 engineering problems that had puzzled the Zephyrian team for months. "There might be a positive side to this," Danny said carefully. "The human thinking patterns seem to be giving some of them new abilities." Dr. Carter looked up from her scanner. "What kind of abilities?" "Creative problem-solving, mostly. They're starting to think outside their normal patterns. It's like they're learning to use parts of their brains they never used before." Commander Velthara's skin went completely white, a sign of shock in her species. "That's impossible. Zephyrian minds don't change. We are born with our thought patterns, and they remain the same throughout our lives." "Maybe that's changing," Dr. White suggested. "Human consciousness might be teaching their brains new ways to function." High Priest Kethamaran suddenly sat up in his bed, his eyes wide but unfocused. 2 + 2 = 4, he said clearly. "But also equals fish, and also equals the sound of rain, and also equals the feeling of missing someone who isn't dead. How do you live with answers that aren't answers?" Jake approached the priest's bed carefully. "We don't look for single answers. We're comfortable with uncertainty." "Comfortable with uncertainty," the priest repeated, his voice filled with wonder. "Impossible. How do you make decisions if you don't know the correct answer?" "We make the best decision we can with the information we have," Jake replied. "And if it turns out to be wrong, we adapt and try something else." The priest stared at him, and for a moment his eyes seemed to focus properly. "You guess? You make decisions based on incomplete information, and somehow that works?" "Most of the time," Jake said with a smile. "Sometimes we're wrong, but being wrong teaches us things too." This concept seemed to cause the priest physical pain. His skin flickered rapidly between colors as his mind tried to process the idea that being wrong could be useful. Dr. Carter had been monitoring the conversation, and she noticed something important. "His brain activity is stabilizing when he talks to us. The human interaction is helping him process the chaos." Commander Velthara stepped forward. "High Priest, can you understand what happened to you?" "I touched the quantum storm that is human consciousness," he replied, his voice growing stronger. "Your minds exist in superposition. You hold multiple contradictory states simultaneously until the moment you need to collapse them into a decision. It's like thinking in music instead of words." Dr. White leaned forward excitedly. "That's actually a brilliant description. Human consciousness might be quantum in nature. That would explain our creativity and adaptability." Communications Officer Beth Adams hurried into the medical bay, looking excited and worried at the same time. "Captain, you need to hear this. I've been monitoring communications from the Zephyrian ship, and something interesting is happening." She activated her portable communicator, and they heard voices speaking in the musical Zephyrian language. But the rhythm was different, more chaotic and energetic than normal Zephyrian speech. "Some of their crew members are starting to communicate in new ways," Beth explained. "They're using their telepathic abilities to share ideas instead of just facts. They're collaborating on problems in ways they never did before." Commander Velthara listened to the communications from her ship, her expression growing more concerned. "This is not how Zephyrians think. We are individual minds that sometimes connect, not a collective consciousness." "Maybe you're becoming something new," Jake suggested, "the best of both species." But High Priest Kethmaran began screaming again, this time in apparent frustration. "Cannot hold all the thoughts. Cannot make them stop multiplying. How do you silence the storm in your heads?" Dr. White realized something important. "We don't silence it. We swim in it. Humans don't try to control chaos, we learn to surf it." "Surf it?" the priest gasped. "Go with the flow instead of fighting it," Jake explained. "Let the thoughts come and go without trying to organize them all." The priest tried this approach, and slowly his screaming subsided into something that sounded almost like singing. His skin began to shimmer with new colors that the humans had never seen before. "It's working," Dr. Carter said, checking her readings. "His stress levels are dropping." But the change was spreading throughout the Zephyrian ship. Engineer Danny Torres reported that half the crew was now showing human-like thought patterns, and they were starting to work together in unprecedented ways. "Captain," Danny said over the communicator, "I think we might have accidentally started an evolution. The Zephyrians are becoming something they've never been before. The question was whether this change would save them or destroy them." The crisis reached its peak on the 5th day. High Priest Kethmaran's condition had stabilized somewhat, but his telepathic broadcasts were creating a resonance effect that threatened both species. The human crew was starting to experience telepathic sensitivity, while the Zephyrian crew was developing human-like chaos in their thinking. Captain Morrison stood in the main conference room with both crews present. Some Zephyrians were holding their heads in pain, while others seemed strangely energized by their new thought patterns. The humans looked tired but fascinated by the whole experience. "We need to find a solution before this gets worse," Jake said. "Dr. Carter, what's your assessment?" Dr. Carter looked exhausted but determined. "The telepathic field is creating a feedback loop between human chaos and Zephyrian order. Either species can exist in the other's mental state for long without damage." Commander Velthera stepped forward, her skin now showing patterns that seemed almost human in their complexity. "Several of my crew members have reported remarkable new abilities. Science Officer Mordeth has developed intuitive leaps in logic that should be impossible for our species, but others are suffering greatly from the mental disorder." Dr. White had been studying the situation from a psychological perspective. "What we're seeing is evolution in real time. The human mind represents one extreme of consciousness, chaotic but adaptive. The Zephyrian mind represents the other extreme, ordered but rigid. Contact between them is forcing both species to find a middle ground." High Priest Kethmaran suddenly spoke from his medical bed, his voice carrying both through the air and telepathically. "There is a way, but it requires sacrifice." Everyone turned to look at him. His skin was now showing colors that didn't exist in normal Zephyrian physiology, swirling patterns that seemed to shift like human thoughts. "I can become a bridge," he continued, his voice growing stronger. "My mind has been broken by human consciousness, but in breaking, it has learned to hold both states simultaneously. I can contain the chaos and translate it into something Zephyrians can understand." Commander Velthera moved to his side. "High Priest, what are you saying?" "I am saying that I will never be truly Zephyrian again. The human thought patterns have changed me permanently, but I can use this change to help both our species coexist." Jake approached the bed. "What would that mean for you?" The priest smiled, an expression that somehow combined Zephyrian serenity with human complexity. "I would become something new. Not fully human, not fully Zephyrian, a living translator between two forms of consciousness." Dr. Carter checked her readings. "His brain patterns are unlike anything I've seen. He's somehow running both human and Zephyrian neural patterns simultaneously. It should be impossible, but he's making it work." Engineer Danny Torres had been monitoring the telepathic field throughout the conversation. "Captain, if he does this, it might solve the feedback problem. He could act as a buffer, absorbing the chaotic signals before they reach the other Zephyrians, but the cost was enormous. High Priest Kethmaran would have to live forever with the storm of human consciousness in his mind, while also maintaining enough Zephyrian order to communicate with his own people." "Are you sure about this?" Commander Velthara asked, her voice filled with concern. "I have seen into the heart of human consciousness," the priest replied. "It is beautiful and terrible and impossible. Your species shouldn't exist, but you do. You think in quantum superposition, hold contradictory truths, create meaning from chaos. You are the most remarkable beings in the galaxy." Dr. White leaned forward. "What did you see that convinced you?" The priest's eyes took on a distant look. "I saw a human child who could be sad about leaving for school and excited about learning at the same time. I saw a mother who loved her child so much she was willing to let him go. I saw artists who created beauty from their pain, scientists who found wonder in uncertainty, and leaders who made decisions knowing they might be wrong." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "But most of all, I saw that humans are not chaotic by accident. You are perfectly designed for a universe that is itself uncertain and contradictory. While other species try to impose order on reality, you dance with its chaos." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this revelation. "So what happens now?" Jake asked. High Priest Kethmaran slowly stood up from his bed, his movements showing a new kind of grace that combined Zephyrian fluidity with human adaptability. "Now I become the first of a new kind of being, I will serve as an ambassador between our species, helping each understand the other. Commander Velthara placed a hand on his shoulder. You will be honored among our people for this sacrifice. It is not a sacrifice, the priest said, his skin now showing a steady pattern of colors that seemed to shift like human thoughts while maintaining Zephyrian harmony. It is an evolution. I have been given the gift of seeing reality from two completely different perspectives. Over the following weeks, the arrangement worked better than anyone had hoped. High Priest Kethmaran served as a telepathic buffer, translating human chaos into patterns that Zephyrians could comprehend without being overwhelmed. At the same time, he helped humans understand the beauty of Zephyrian mental harmony. The first formal diplomatic contact between humanity and the Zephyrian Confederation was unlike any first contact in galactic history. Instead of exchanging gifts or territories, the two species exchanged ways of thinking. Humans learned techniques for mental clarity and emotional balance from the Zephyrians. Zephyrians learned creative problem-solving and adaptive thinking from humans. Both species were changed by the contact, but in ways that made them stronger. Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of Europa 7, watching the Zephyrian ship prepare to depart. High Priest Kethmaran would be staying behind, at least for now, to help establish ongoing communication protocols. Any regrets? Dr. Carter asked, joining him at the window. Jake thought about the question seriously. About making contact? No, but I feel sorry for what happened to the priest. I spoke with him yesterday, Dr. Carter said. He told me something interesting. He said that before touching a human mind, he thought consciousness was like a river, flowing in one direction, following predictable channels. Now he knows that consciousness is like an ocean, vast, deep, and full of currents we don't understand. And he's swimming in that ocean now. Yes, but he's also teaching others how to swim. The Zephyrian ship began moving away from the station, but Jake knew this was just the beginning. Word would spread throughout the galaxy about the species whose minds were quantum storms, whose consciousness was so chaotic and creative that it could break a telepathic priest's sanity. Some species would fear humanity, others would be curious, but all of them would know that Earth had produced something unprecedented, minds that thrived in chaos and found strength in contradiction. High Priest Kethmaran had paid the price for that knowledge, but he had also gained something precious in return. He had become the first being in galactic history to truly understand what it meant to be human. And in the depths of his transformed mind, human thoughts continued to multiply and contradict and create, no longer a source of pain, but a constant reminder of the beautiful impossibility of consciousness itself. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again, and perhaps that was exactly as it should be.